Hi, my name is Lacey Jenkins, and my presentation is titled The Power and Authority of the Relief Society from Unit 10 under Concept 3, Creation and Purposes of the Nauvoo Relief Society. On March 17, 1842, 20 women assembled on the upper floor of the red brick store along with Joseph Smith and two members of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, Elder John Taylor and Elder Willard Richards. This is the day that the Relief Society was officially organized as part of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and Joseph's wife, Emma Smith, was called to be the president of the society. She chose two counselors to preside over the organization with her, Sarah M. Cleveland and Elizabeth N. Whitney. What's interesting about this is that Emma's calling as president fulfilled some revelation that she had received several years earlier through Joseph Smith, which is found in Doctrine and Covenants, section 25. This reads in verse 1, "Hearken unto the voice of the Lord your God, while I speak unto you, Emma Smith, my daughter. For verily I say unto you, all those who receive my gospel are sons and daughters in my kingdom." Verse 7 says, "And thou shalt be ordained under his hand to expound scriptures and to exhort the church, according as it shall be given thee by my Spirit." These words given by God are just kind of a foreshadowing of the incredible miracles and responsibilities that the women in the church would carry moving forward. Which kind of leads me into my first concept that I wanted to address during this presentation, which is that the role of women in the gospel is crucial both in temporary and eternal contexts. The Relief Society is a great example of how much of the weight of the early church was carried on the backs of women. The church would have not survived without their contribution. And I think that these words highlight that, because the words ordained and expound and exhort are not words of submission. They're not words of delicacy. They're words of power and of strength and authority. And so the Relief Society was not organized to brush the women aside or to keep them busy while the men did the real important work. It was a much needed and even essential organization in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. In the introduction to the book, In the First 50 Years of Relief Society, we learned that the Relief Society was built on principles of relieving the poor and of saving souls. Joseph Smith, at one meeting that he attended for the Relief Society, highlights the spiritual gifts that women would acquire and develop and use to bless the lives of many people. And he talked about how important their roles would be as women in society. And from the Joseph Smith papers, there's a quote that says, "President Smith continued the subject by adverting to the commission given to the ancient apostles, 'Go ye into all the world, no matter who believeth. These signs, such as healing the sick, casting out devils, should follow all that believe, whether male or female.' He asked the society if they could not see by this sweeping stroke that wherein they are ordained, it is the privilege of those set apart to administer in that authority which is conferred on them. And if the sisters should have faith to heal the sick, let all hold their tongues, and let everything roll on." Respecting female laying on of hands, he further remarked, "There could be no devil in it if God gave his sanction by healing, that there could be no more sin in any female laying hands on the sick than in wetting the face with water, that it is no sin for anybody to do it that has faith, or if the sick has faith to be healed by the administration." And so in this quote, Joseph Smith is really just highlighting how powerful the faith of these women in the early Relief Society is and could be and should continue to be, and how their roles are absolutely essential and needed in society. Other things that the women of the early Relief Society did is provide charitable relief for impoverished LDS people and recent immigrants, as well as for American Indian women and children. They also officiated in temple ordinances, and they participated in more political atmospheres or national atmospheres, as they had a huge role in the women's suffrage movement, which is very interesting. But the most important thing that I learned that I think reflects the attitude of women as a whole very well is what Eileen Clyde teaches us in her talk, Relief Society, Charity, the Guiding Principle, which is that women, especially the women of the early Relief Society and the purpose of the Relief Society, emulates Christ with the quality of charity. I think charity can often be seen from a worldly perspective as weak or naive or just kind of unimportant. But in reality, it's the pure love of Christ, and it's the most important quality that we can have. And so the fact that the Relief Society was built on that principle shows that we are emulating Christ in all that we do. And I think that's important to remember, that as we participate in the Relief Society and as we exude that charity, we can eventually become like our Heavenly Mother one day, and we can receive that exaltation that we are promised. Concept 2 of my presentation has to do with the priesthood authority, which is one that definitely kind of gets mixed up and misunderstood in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The priesthood is the power of God delegated to man, by which man can act in the earth for the salvation of the human family. And both women and men have a role in the salvation of the human family. I wanted to read Elder Oak's quote from The Keys and Authority of the Priesthood, which is a talk that many people are familiar with. He says in here, "We are not accustomed to speaking of women having the authority of the priesthood in their church callings, but what other authority can it be? When a woman, young or old, is set apart to preach the gospel as a full-time missionary, she is given priesthood authority to perform a priesthood function," which kind of just opens up the perspective that if a woman is engaging in the act of salvation for the human family in some way, she is calling upon the powers of the priesthood. And I felt that for sure as a missionary. I don't think that I could have possibly done what I did if I didn't have the power and authority of the priesthood backing me up in all that I did. But the reason that the Relief Society is so powerful is because of this priesthood. I mean, in Doctrine and Covenants, it talks a lot about the priesthood and its importance, and I wanted to read a little bit of that too. In section 128, in verse 9, it reads, "It may seem to some to be a very bold doctrine that we talk of, a power which records or binds on earth and binds in heaven. Nevertheless, in all ages of the world, whenever the Lord has given a dispensation of the priesthood to any man by actual revelation or any set of men, this power has always been given." And so basically this is saying that the priesthood is an essential and eternal power that has been given to the followers of Christ since the beginning of time. And to me, it just makes sense that the Relief Society would have a part in this priesthood because it is an essential and it is an important part of the gospel. And how could God have an organization in his church that didn't have the works of the priesthood ingrained inside of it? So the key takeaway that I want from this presentation is that the Relief Society was and is still a divinely appointed organization, that it is an essential tool in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as the children of God on earth prepared to make covenants in the temple and receive eternal life.